Southern California, welcome to Money Matters with Dino. Saturdays from noon to 1, right here on Power Players Radio, KTLK AM1150. Do you own a home or have plans to in the future? You'll get all the information you need to know about what's happening in the local real estate market and how to take advantage of that knowledge. How to approach home ownership or mortgage financing with design, vision, and focus, as well as accurate information. Whether you're buying, selling, or investing, listen to Money Matters with Dino right here on Power Players Radio, KTLK AM1150.
Welcome to Money Matters with Dino on KTLK AM1150. I'm Dino Katsiametis, and I want to thank you for joining today's conversation. Today we're coming to you live from CAMP, California Association of Mortgage Professionals. They're holding their annual lender fair this year, and I'm proud to say that it's in Newport Beach, my own backyard. So it's really great to be a host over here today. And as always, it's so critical to me that I provide you with accurate and educational information that applies to you directly. And that's why I'm so proud to be here with the best and brightest in finance and real estate today. Before I get into what we have in store for you today, I want to tell you why I do this show, week in and week out, and why we decided to call this Money Matters. We'll be talking about personal and business finances with top professionals in their respected fields. However, my expertise is in growing and managing wealth using the vehicle of real estate to help you reach your financial goals. Having decades of experience and extensive knowledge in helping people with their real estate needs has convinced me that real estate is still and by far the best way to grow a steady and secure portfolio of wealth. Now, that's not the only reason why we call the show Money Matters. The other, and I think the greater reason, is that money affects your quality of life. Every financial decision you make will affect where you'll be able to go for dinner, how you'll spend the holidays, and if you're a family man like me, it will mean where your kids will go to college, or even if they'll be able to go. Think about that. Every financial decision you make today will affect your quality of life tomorrow. Decisions that will affect what neighborhood you live in, what schools your kids will go to, if they'll play organized sports or even learn how to play an instrument. I know that sounds silly, but it's not. All these things cost money. I know as well as anybody that you don't want to say no because of money, but too many of us have to, too much of the time. Real estate, when managed properly with the advice of professionals, will enable you to say yes, and understanding real estate will protect you from market volatility like we experienced the last few years. I think you'll enjoy the show. Today we're going to be talking about Mortgage Debt Relief Act, bankruptcy laws, and consumer and homeowner advocacy. Our guest today will be Keefe Roberts, attorney at law, Timothy O'Reilly, also attorney at law from Home Protection Law Center, and, of course, our very own state president of CAMP, Fred Kreger. In the next segment, our guest will join us in our discussion with our panel of experts on our topics of the week. So stay tuned for that, as well as our last segment, which is Ask Dino. The Ask Dino segment is basically questions that you listeners have either Facebooked us or personally emailed us, and just have the general mortgage questions or real estate related. Now, if you have any questions for myself or any of the guests you're going to hear today, give us a call at 888-814-3335. That's 888-814-3335. Or you can look us up at moneymatterswithdino.com. Use our resources for real estate wealth. Okay, as promised, allow me to introduce Fred Kreger from American Family Funding. Fred is the branch manager over there, and he's also our active state president of CAMP. How are you?
Great, thanks, Dino. Thanks for having me on.
So tell me a little bit about CAMP. What's going on over here?
Well, this is actually our second of two events that we host here in the state of California. So we have 14 chapters right now statewide, and what we like to do as a state is actually bring everybody together, because at the end of the day, I got to tell you, we've been set on fire, we've been drawn and quartered. We got still people that still want to originate here in California. We estimate at the height of the market there was about 90,000 originators here in California.
All mortgage originators.
All mortgage originators, right. So now today we're probably almost down to a little more than 30,000. Now I don't have my HP calculator, but I think that's about 2/3 that are gone.
Is that a bad thing?
Something, at the end of the day, I think when you look at it, I think the bad actors have left the business, and the people who will remain truly are the advocates, for the consumer today. And one of the things that we wanted to do today is to ensure that the loan originator today needs to be and see that they're actually part of a larger group. They're a larger cause, not because, you have 1 and 2 party shops that, kind of put their nose down every single day, say, okay, I need to do my loan, but there are other things that are happening, regulatory, legislatively, best practices. And so what we like to do here in the Lenders Fair, then we also have an annual convention, and what we do is we split it between Northern California and Southern California, so we give equal share, is what can we do today in order to provide the best practices for the originator to do today? And the theme of the last couple days was building business. What better time to have it but in January, right? We bring in a panel of experts. We actually had the regional director, the CFPB, which is our now regulator for the state of California,
right,
if not the entire nation, actually do some Q&A. And so I think people in what we've been listening to really are better prepared for 2013 so they can actually excel. So instead of them saying, okay, I don't want to keep doing over and over and over again, but I want to do something different. I want to do something that is enable me to put, as you said in the beginning, right, satisfy for my family, provide for my family, provide for my children. Also, think about the people that you employ. The same thing. We want to make sure that that people are employed to here in California. So that's really the main crux of why we had this event today.
And, as an originator myself, I got to say this is the first time in all my years that I actually feel educated about my profession. I even feel a little more professional, so to speak, right? Because we all had a pretty bad reputation for a while there. And it's unfortunate because all the people that were in the business, and I guess as they called it out here, was the wild, wild west.
Right.
Right? Well, now it's not like that anymore. And I used to say to all my clients, don't trust that guy. But now I can honestly say is whoever's left over in our industry, they're professional.
Right, and I think that's the key point. Again, they're a professional because they keep wanting to educate themselves, be better, because at the end of the day, what are they doing? They're providing for a client to satisfy a goal, whether it's home ownership, whether it's refinancing to pay for a college education, satisfy other needs that they're having today. And I think us as originators, and especially people that are in this business right now, we are the professionals. We are the ones that are actually giving out the advice. And that's also the theme and the topic. We need to have discussions with our regulators, with our legislators. Hey, we're the ones who are providing this. We need to give you advice. So instead of them making legislative and regulatory changes based on a vacuum, they need to listen to us. And that's one of the things that we're trying to advocate for.
So, and that's what's interesting. I mean, you're an originator, but yet you've also, you're an advocate for the mortgage industry. You've spoken in front of the federal and in front of state level to the U.S. Congressional House Financial Services Committee, right?
Correct. And that's one of the great parts about establishing a relationship. And I can remember 10 years ago when I lobbied for the first time, I was scared to death. But you know what set me at ease? I understand that I'm their constituent. I'm the person they want to listen to because we're their eyes, their ears of what goes on the streets, right? So when you talk to them, it's like, okay, what is really going on?
Right.
And I think that's what's so important about what you and I do on a daily basis, is that is the crux of what they really want. Because really, who's voting for them, right? Who are they representing? And that is our clients, you and I.
And you're so right, because when people make laws and they have no idea what the industry really is about and what actually happens on a day-to-day basis, right, then there's no way to actually make the right law that really is an advocate to the consumer. It's whatever suits them. It's just like a CEO that doesn't really understand the business, goes in just tries to run it. There's always something missing.
Right, and that's interesting you bring that up. There's that key phrase that is being used. Even Edwin Chow from the CFPB used it yesterday. Unintended consequence, right? And I always tell this speech every time I talk to people. It's like you have a pendulum. You have a pendulum, right? It swings to the left, it swings to the right. I've never known anything that actually is in the middle. So, during the heyday when we had the ninja loans, breathe in the mirror, it was to the entire left. Let's let everybody in. Well, we saw the problems with that. We also had other people, bad actors, get in the field and start making money and do not what was best for the client. But now we have it swing to the other far to the right, where it's so draconian that we're actually ceasing credit. So we're trying to be the voice of reason to the legislators who are now listening. It's almost as if we opened up Pandora's box, and I'm talking about we as the legislators,
sure.
Right? They're telling us, we opened up Pandora's box, we don't know how to close it. Can you help us? That is the first time that both in California, Sacramento, and in Washington, D.C., they've actually asked that question. And it's, to me, that's amazing.
Yeah, finally.
Right.
Well, we're going to go to our panel discussion here in just a minute, but I do have one question to ask you. Tell me a little bit about the Homeowners Bill of Rights and what CAMP does to position itself in that legislation.
That's one of the things that we were trying to advocate on behalf of the consumer, because at the end of the day, it is having to do with what is best for the consumer. Now, you need to caution, again, unintended consequence to ensure that you don't stop credit. And everything sounds great. We have consumer groups that we actually talk to. We have other groups that we talk to. It's like, what's in the best purpose and use of the client? The unfortunate part is that it sounds great on paper, but then when you get down to the devil in the details, sometimes, again, we look at that unintended consequence. They talk about dual tracking, which is great. I truly do believe that if someone is going through a modification process, yes, indeed, stop the foreclosure process.
Sure.
If you're going to be able to modify and they agree that I'm going to go ahead and make the payment, why wouldn't you?
Why wouldn't you, right?
Right. To me, we call that the duh factor, right? That's the make sense factor. And that's, I think, part of one of the Home Bill of Rights that we do see. The unfortunate part is, and when they make rules based on investors, so that's the servicers, when you make it so tight, sometimes the investors will say, something, it's not worth it.
Right.
We saw that, with the LA ordinance way back when in the early 2000s. We saw that in Atlanta, where we had whole investors pull out of an entire community and stop lending. Well, if you do that, what happens to that community?
Yeah.
Right? So we have to be cautious. We have to have that balancing act between what is fair and right, and to make sure you protect the consumer, but also make sure that there is adequate investor dollars going back into that community.
Right. So, Fred, hang with us because you're going to be part of our panel of experts here in just a minute. But if you just jumped into your car, you're listening to Money Matters with Dino on KTLK AM1150. We're at CAMP, California Association of Mortgage Professionals, 2013 Annual Lender Fair down in Newport Beach. And we're going to be speaking a little bit more about some of the new laws that are out, bankruptcy, and we'll be back in just a few minutes. If you want to call us or talk to me or any of our experts here today, call us at 888-814-3335. That's 888-814-3335. When we get back, we'll be speaking with Fred Kreger, the president of California Association of Mortgage Professionals, Keefe Roberts, and Timothy O'Reilly. Be right back.
Alliance Portfolio is a licensed real estate broker. California DRE broker license 01868859, NMLS 324460.
Are you looking to diversify or add real estate secured investments to your portfolio? Did you know that investing in trust deeds can provide a better return with better security than many other alternate investments? For over 20 years, Alliance Portfolio has been providing the highest quality mortgage fund and trust deed investment opportunities with first-class service and communication. Alliance Portfolio offers well underwritten loans, low loan-to-value ratios, and all secured by prime Southern California coastal community real estate. At Alliance Portfolio, we don't just lend money, we lend our expertise. Call 949-349-1322 today and let us know that you heard us on the Dino and Nelson Show to capitalize on a special opportunity. That's 949-349-1322. Investors, when our job is done, your job is easy. Sit back and capitalize. 949-349-1322 or text the word Alliance to 313131.
Welcome back to Money Matters with Dino on KTLK AM1150. If you have any questions for myself or my guest, or if you need help with your money matters, give us a call at 888-814-3335. That's 888-814-3335, or check us out online at moneymatterswithdino.com. This segment is brought to you by Alliance Portfolio, high-yield, low-risk investment funds utilizing Southern California coastal real estate. Joining us today in our discussion panel with the experts are Fred Kreger, president of CAMP, who was with us for the last segment, attorney Keefe Roberts, and also attorney and retired Lieutenant Colonel Timothy O'Reilly. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Dino.
Thanks for having me.
How are
Thanks
you guys?
for having us, Dino. Appreciate being here.
No problem. I'm looking forward to talking to you guys. You guys are just a wealth of knowledge, and I think our listeners are going to really learn something today. Maybe more so than my regular shows when they're just listening to me, huh? So I have a resume here on all you guys, but my gosh, the accomplishments that you've all had. I'm just going to let you introduce yourself. Keefe, why don't you start? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, I started my legal career in 2001 and started out as a law clerk to a bankruptcy judge. Got a real firm foundation in bankruptcy law. And one day when I was in court, a young lawyer walked in, and he was working for Ameriquest Mortgage Company. And he said, "Hey, they're hiring. You want a real job?" So
A real job.
Yeah, well, I got a real job, that's for sure. They certainly kept me busy, and I became a fireman.
I bet.
Not a lawyer, no. But so I spent several years at Ameriquest, climbed the corporate ladder with a fast-growing company, became general counsel over the whole mortgage servicing operation, and then was recruited to go to Fremont Investment and Loan to run their legal department for about 2.5 years until the FDIC finally got us. But it was a great experience. Then I went to private practice, which is, I actually did it ass backwards. Can you say that on the radio?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Then I went into private practice with two other well-known bank lawyers, and we were representing all the mortgage lenders for a couple of years, and then it imploded. My two partners, Ben Carl, who was the general counsel for MERS, and Ralph Witcher, who was a well-known lawyer out of Chicago, they focused primarily on mortgage origination, and I did most of the mortgage servicing. So servicing became the big thing, and the mortgage origination went away. And so I split up from them, and I've been representing lenders ever since. So,
Timothy, how about yourself?
Well, thanks, Dino. Again, I'm Timothy O'Reilly. I've been practicing law here in Southern California for almost 24 years now. Most of my career, I have been a trial lawyer at one level or another, practicing in all kinds of law. Been a supervising prosecutor before for the city of Long Beach. Spent a good amount of time in private practice, doing everything from criminal defense to representing real property disputes. I also am a licensed mortgage. I'm a real estate broker and also a mortgage. Hold a mortgage originator's license. I have.
I got to ask you, why would you do that if you're an attorney?
Well, it was.
Why would you sink down to my level?
Yeah, well, the reason that is because a couple of years back I was asked to come on as general counsel for a startup mortgage company, and as part of that process and learning the mortgage business and learning how they were going to be generating essentially the mortgage process, it was one of those things that I thought would be very helpful to me, and frankly it was. That was really kind of the foundation where I started to understand and learn the mortgage business, how it was actually done, what happened to mortgages after they were originated, but again, looking at it from the legal side. So that was a very important piece of my education and training, but it certainly wasn't something I have to tell you. I have never originated a mortgage, but I've got the right to do so if that opportunity ever comes up. What else can I tell you? As you said, I spent 25 years in the military, just recently retired out. My retirement was just out of the reserves and National Guard. Uncle Sam was kind enough several times to activate me out of the reserves, and I did get to spend a little over a year in a fun-filled, far-off place.
Is it fair to call you America's badass?
I don't know about that necessarily, but
retired lieutenant colonel and trial attorney.
Yeah, it tends to give you a lack of fear on things. I can tell you that much. So you don't when you come back and show back up in the courtrooms, and people are going, "Oh, aren't you afraid of things?" And you're like, "Afraid of? No, this is not what fear feels like. This is I've seen that,
Sure.
And this is not it." So it definitely makes you a better advocate and somebody who's able to handle ever-changing situations rather quickly. So more recently, I've been working. Matter of fact, after learning about being in the mortgage business, seeing what was going on in terms of a lot of the foreclosure industry, I kind of have taken up a consumer's side of things, so I'm a little out of my element here with the rest of you, but most of my practices of recent has been in the consumer banking side and foreclosure defense issues, so that has been again, a bit of a change from what I was doing previously, but it has been a fascinating, and
Sure.
I think with the new law changes is going to be an incredibly large area of practicing law right now. So we really are going to see some changes in the mortgage business, especially on the servicing side.
It's really going to be interesting to see. And as all of you have heard, we're truly speaking to three professionals here, three experts that are going to be answering a lot of questions for us. If you just jumped into your car, you're listening to Money Matters with Dino on KTLK AM1150. You can reach us at 888-814-3335. That's 888-814-3335. Or you can get us on the web at moneymatterswithdino.com. Guys, so the first question is Mortgage Debt Relief Act. Who's the expert on that? Which one of you guys really know your business on it? I see Keefe smiling.
Well, I'm certainly not an expert on it. I'm not an accountant. I think you need to be to fully understand.
That's an attorney's disclaimer, by the way.
Exactly. So I'm not an accountant. I'm not a tax attorney. However, I can brief you on it because it impacts the short sales and the foreclosures.
So remember, you're not billing right now, so keep it short.
Okay.
and we know it got extended in 2013. So tell us a little bit about that and how that's going to affect the consumer.
Sure, they extended it for 2013. It's going to cover, and this is on the federal level. The state, I don't believe they've ruled on that yet here in California. But they extended the Mortgage Debt Forgiveness Relief Act through the end of 2013 for one more year. And it'll exempt from taxation any 1099-C income. When a lender forecloses or does a short sale, they're required under the Internal Revenue Code to notify the IRS and to notice you by way of a 1099-C form of the forgiveness of debt. And that forgiveness of debt is cancellation of debt, and it is income in the eyes of the IRS to the taxpayer.
So I got a question then, just to clarify it for everybody. If you own a home, you took out money, right? Let's say you took out a $50,000 line just to upgrade your house or whatever it be, and then you either get foreclosed on or you short sale, that is considered income.
The difference in what was not recovered from the foreclosure sale or the short sale, in other words, the deficiency amount, the amount that the bank was not able to recoup, they write that off, and they report it to the IRS as canceled debt. That is taxable unless it fits one of their enumerated exemptions set forth in the Internal Revenue Code. One of them being bankruptcy. Another one is what's called the insolvency exemption, which doesn't mean you have to file bankruptcy, but if your assets, if the liabilities exceed the assets, then again, I'm not an accountant. That's something that gets kind of complicated. But with respect to the Mortgage Debt Forgiveness Relief Act, that covers that same deficiency amount up to, I think they raised it now. I thought it was $250,000. It may be more now. I think it's up to $1 million. But anyhow, it's covered under that if it's your primary residence. So if your primary residence got foreclosed on, or you short sold it, then you're entitled to that exemption up to whatever that limit is.
So this is a huge tax savings for everybody out there. And if they didn't extend it in 2013, what would have been happening to our economy right now? Would that have made a difference, you think?
Well, it's interesting because that was part of the fiscal cliff, kind of, I guess, balancing act that they wanted to put forward to. And I think that one of the reasons why they did that, I think they wanted to enable more people to foreclose and short sale and have it easier, probably the short sale process. And so that way there wasn't that pain associated possibly with that, which also gains more access to homes in order to put back on the market. Because again, we still have that, phantom, inventory that people don't know about.
If it even exists.
Right.
I don't think it exists.
Right. So it's like, okay, did this enable us to put more homes on the market in order to put more people into homes? Again, it's a balancing act. We won't see probably the repercussions of that or the positive part of that probably for the next couple of years.
Okay. So let's move on a little bit. What about the HAMP program? Who's the most familiar with HAMP? Timothy?
Well, actually, I'm not. HAMP is not really something that I've dealt a whole lot with. So I've looked at it from the standpoint of actual foreclosures and dealing with it at that level once somebody's moving forward on it. I did have some background with it, but I'm not going to be able to talk to you about changes in it and what's going on currently with the program, unfortunately.
Well, I can tell you a little bit about it because my servicing clients have to deal with it, and oftentimes I'm getting the requests from homeowners. So HAMP is a government-sponsored modification program, and it's gone through a lot of changes through the years. And I think it went into effect in March or April of 2009. But essentially, it started out designed primarily for your principal residence and to try to modify your loan and save your home. It's now been extended to investment properties as well. It used to be that you didn't have to be delinquent to qualify. Sure. Then they said you have to be delinquent. Then they said you don't have to be delinquent. They can't make up their mind. But right now, as it stands, you have to be in imminent risk of default. That's one of the prerequisites. It has to be your primary residence. You have to be in imminent risk of default, which means, and it's defined in the HAMP guidelines, at least 2 payments behind. Okay, 60 days down. And that creates a problem because a lot of times these homeowners will say, well, the mortgage servicer told me to stop making my payments.
Sure.
Sure. That's a big defense that they always raise. Well, not really. It depends on how you interpreted it. I think what they say is, you don't qualify for the modification program unless you're 2 payments or more behind. They didn't say stop making your payments.
Sure.
Anyhow, so it essentially goes through a test, and in layman's terms, they're going to lose money. The lender's going to lose money either way, right? So the servicer looks at 2 scenarios, well, actually 3: short sale, loan modification, foreclosure. Which one's going to lose them the least amount of money? That's really it in its simplest form. The net present value test. It gets a lot more complicated, but that's really what they're looking at. Or does it make sense to foreclose? Does it make sense to allow this borrower to modify, and then taking into account the risk of redefault, which happens quite often on these modifications, and then also short sale. Sometimes short sale is the right solution for these homeowners.
Sure.
So.
If you just tuned in, you're listening to Money Matters with Dino, and we have our panel of experts here, and I'm telling you, this is free information, so you do not want to change that dial.
Non-billable.
Non-billable, free information. These are guys that typically charge a lot of money, so if you'd like to speak with them afterwards, you can call us direct at 888-814-3335. That's 888-814-3335, or you can check us out online at Money Matters with Dino. We'll have all their information up as well. This segment was brought to you by Alliance Portfolio, high-yield, low-risk investment funds utilizing coastal Southern California real estate. We'll be right back from the Camp Lender Fair in Newport Beach.
Alliance Portfolio is a licensed real estate broker. California DRE broker license 01868859, NMLS 324460.
Are you looking to diversify or add real estate secured investments to your portfolio? Did you know that investing in trust deeds can provide a better return with better security than many other alternate investments? For over 20 years, Alliance Portfolio has been providing the highest quality mortgage fund and trust deed investment opportunities with first-class service and communication. Alliance Portfolio offers well underwritten loans, low loan-to-value ratios, and all secured by prime Southern California coastal community real estate. At Alliance Portfolio, we don't just lend money, we lend our expertise. Call 949-349-1322 today and let us know that you heard us on the Dino and Nelson Show to capitalize on a special opportunity. That's 949-349-1322. Investors, when our job is done, your job is easy. Sit back and capitalize. 949-349-1322 or text the word Alliance to 313131.
Coming to you live from the CAMPS, California Association of Mortgage Professionals 2013 Lender Fair here in Newport Beach at the Marriott. And you're listening to Money Matters with Dino on KTLK AM1150. We're here every Saturday afternoon from 12 to 1. It's my pleasure today to have our distinguished panel of experts here. And Timothy O'Reilly, our attorney. We have a lot of new foreclosure laws that are out there right now. Guide me through what an individual would go through if he was in default and he was going to go the route of foreclosure. What exactly has to happen?
Are you talking in terms of the actual foreclosure process itself?
The process itself.
Yeah, the foreclosure process in California is what we call non-judicial. What that means is that it doesn't require a court, it doesn't require any intervention by anyone, as long as whoever the servicing entity is follows certain rules. The borrower has to be in default. That's defined as basically missing 90 days worth of payments. Now, under the new laws, there's some additional requirements that before the next event occurs, which is the filing of a notice of default, the servicer is required to do a number of additional contact measures, letters, certified letters in certain circumstances, which take the time. Probably you're going to add an additional 30, maybe as much as 60 days before they're able to actually go through the process now and file the notice of default. Usually as soon as that default occurred, the lender or the servicer was in a position to actually go ahead and file that next document. And that's not a document filed with the court. It's filed with the county recorder's office. They'll send a copy to the homeowner telling the homeowner that they are in fact in default and how much they owe the servicer as of the date of the filing of that notice. Once that happens, the borrower is entitled to try to cure the loss. That particular time period is an additional 3 months. If there is no curing of the loss during that additional 3 months, the servicer can then file a notice of sale, noticing the sale as early as 20 days, 21 days actually, following that. So you're talking from the time somebody first misses a payment to the time somebody's actually able to go to a foreclosure sale, and that's at the end of that 21-day period. The trustee can then actually sell the property, a process in California that's going to take somewhere between 7, maybe as much as 9 months now from the time the payment stops. So it is a bit involved. It's very time-consuming. But again, it's a process that is run basically by the servicers, and the courts are not involved in it at all. So there's nobody overseeing whether or not it's done properly or done wrong. And these new laws that the legislature has passed are designed to fix a lot of things that are considered abuses or some bad business practices that the servicers have engaged in over the last few years.
If somebody's in that process and they're towards the end of the process, but they really do want to keep their home, are there solutions for people? Or is it too late at that point?
Well, no, it's actually never too late until, and even now with the new law, I mean, it's not too late up until the time of sale to try to keep your house. There have been instances, and we've been successful actually reversing foreclosures. That's a very difficult feat, but it can be done. So even after a foreclosure sale has happened, there are some remedies if, in fact, you can show the servicer that they didn't follow the proper procedures, they didn't do the process correctly, you can actually undo the foreclosure sale. There are specific remedies now which didn't exist before as of January 1st of this year that are provided to homeowners to seek damages and seek attorney's fees and civil penalties and a bunch of other things against servicers who don't follow the process correctly.
Keefe, I got a question for you regarding bankruptcy. You're the bankruptcy professional. I mean, you know every aspect about it.
Pretty much.
What is the difference between all the different filings?
Okay, well, with respect to consumers, individuals, there are two primary chapters. There's Chapter 7 and Chapter 13. Chapter 7 is specifically designed to quickly dispose of unsecured debt. In 2005, they did a huge revision of the bankruptcy code, and as part of that, and it was sponsored by many lobbyists, credit card companies, because they were tired of writing off huge debt,
losing everything.
And we talked earlier before this segment about the stigma of bankruptcy and how that's gone out the window. You know, it used to be the scarlet bee, we call it.
Sure.
Well, that's no longer there. People, are filing bankruptcy left and right. Bankruptcy is a federal code designed to help an individual, or a business, but in this case individuals, to get a fresh start, and that's a defined term in the code, give a fresh start to an honest debtor. And so anybody that has a hardship or a hiccup, that's what it's intended for. The Chapter 7 is really to get rid of all unsecured debt, a lot of credit card debt that may amount to medical bills. It's not really there to help you save your home.
Got it.
Although you can do a Chapter 7 and then follow it with a Chapter 13.
Prolongs it a little bit, right?
Huh?
It prolongs the foreclosure a little bit?
Well, it does give you a temporary 3-month stay, really, and most lenders will not proceed with a motion for relief from stay in a Chapter 7 because it goes by so fast. By the time they get it calendared, they don't usually go after it.
Sure.
Pre-foreclosure. Now, after foreclosure, if you file a bankruptcy, the lender is going to be very aggressive in getting a relief from stay because they want to proceed with their eviction. Now, with a Chapter 13, that's a reorganization. And what you essentially do is present a plan to the court to get approved by the court and the Chapter 13 trustee that says, I'm going to pay my creditors over time. Now, one of the reasons people have to file 13 when they otherwise would file a 7 is if they don't qualify for the 7. Under the new law, after 2005, it made it more difficult for you to just discharge debt. It said you have to pass what's called the means test. In other words, if there is any income that you can dedicate, even a penny a month, to a creditor, then you should be forced to have to pay them something over a 36-month plan. And also, it allows you to put all the mortgage arrears into the plan and pay it over time, 36 months or up to 60 months if you qualify.
Now, is that it? The maximum is 60 months?
60 months under Chapter 13, yeah.
Okay.
So you can put your arrears and tell your lender stop. If they're not going to give you a modification, you force them to modify the loan and take payments over time. And the problem is that most borrowers can't afford the increased payment because you have to make your regular monthly mortgage payment once you file the bankruptcy going forward. You don't have to go back and pay all the back payments right away. But they take that, let's say you're $1,000 a month, 12 months behind, that's $12,000.
Sure.
You have to spread that $12,000 out over 36 months and add that to your regular monthly mortgage payment of $1,000.
So what happens in that situation?
Well, a lot of people don't complete the plan. They'll get the plan confirmed by the court, but then they don't have the economic wherewithal to actually see it through. I think the last stat I saw on it, like only 3% of all people who file Chapter 13 complete their bankruptcy plans.
Oh, interesting.
But it does buy you temporary relief, and I have to tell you that lenders are more inclined to negotiate with a loan mod and loosen their standards, so to speak, in a Chapter 13 when you're in a bankruptcy, because they want that bankruptcy dismissed. They don't want to be under the protection of the bankruptcy court.
Right.
So,
Fred, I got a question for you. Being a lender, somebody's filed for bankruptcy. What does it take to be able to refinance or buy a home after that?
Well, it's interesting. So one of the things that we were looking at is, again, what is fair and equitable in order to get a person back into properties. And, the government has been pretty good about allowing for using FHA mortgages, USDA, and also VA, and especially VA. It's interesting. I did a segment a long time ago about less than 5% of veterans actually understand that they have a benefit of housing, and it's just pretty remarkable to me. So in terms of that, and that's how anybody that actually goes through a foreclosure process or a short sale, short of what's called a conventional mortgage, can get into in less than 2 years after a short sale. And so it's, again, when you look at the traditional short sale foreclosure prior to the economy taking a downturn, it was mostly for medical reasons. It was mostly for job reasons.
Sure.
Well, that's still in place. People still suffer major medical catastrophes. People still lose their jobs. There are still, life happens. Right? And so, what is fair and equitable in order to get a person back into a home and kind of boost themselves back up again? And I think that's where you have these different types of programs where you have the FHA, you have the VA, et cetera, that allow those individuals to get back into those homes sooner than they would under a normal conventional loan.
So FHA, 2 years. What about conventional, Fannie or Freddie?
So right now, I think it's 4 or 7. It's funny.
It's 4.
Yeah, is it 4 now? Yeah. It's funny because I haven't, done one because of all the most recent, foreclosures.
But I wonder though, why is it 4 years with them and 2 years with Fannie? I mean, what's the difference? When you filed for bankruptcy, you just cleared yourself of everything. You're actually at better risk at that point.
It's almost like a penalty, right? They're put in a penalty box,
right?
For convention. Well, and also to remember, those rules were put into place when they were true what's called GSEs or government-sponsored entities. They weren't not part of the government.
Right.
And so they were still a for-profit agency. And so when you're a for-profit agency, you tend to take less risk, and you tend to make certain other decisions versus if you're kind of a government entity, which I think is what we're seeing.
Right. Who knows this answer? It's if a husband and wife married, husband files for bankruptcy, what happens to the wife? Let's say she doesn't want to file. She doesn't need to. They've had some separation. Does she also get penalized?
Well, when you say penalized, no, they can't report that on her credit report.
What about, let's say, on the house, though? If they own a house together or have even certain other assets together.
Yeah, well, what's one of the beauties of Chapter 13 is only one debtor needs to file, but the spouse, the co-debtor, doesn't and still is afforded the protection of the bankruptcy. It's called a co-debtor stay.
Okay. If you just jumped into your car, you're listening to Money Matters with Dino on KTLK AM1150. We can be reached at 888-814-3335. That's 888-814-3335. You can check us out on the web at moneymatterswithdino.com. We're also on Facebook. We'd love it if you went and liked our page, Money Matters with Dino. And if you have any questions that you'd like answered, just go on there and ask the question. We will get to it the following week. This segment was brought to you by Citywide Home Loans, Southern California's premier and trusted mortgage company. Guys, what are some of the questions that you hear a lot that you think a consumer would want to know? How about you, Timothy?
What, as far as their questions are concerned?
Yeah, just what do you hear all the time, day in, day out?
Can you save my home is probably the biggest thing that I hear from people. Why won't the bank give me a modification is another thing. Probably one of the recurring themes that in dealing with consumers these days is they have been put through the mill in the last several years so badly, not only from the servicer standpoint, but from these phony modification schemes and scams and everything else that they have been burned on. And so when something like these new laws come around, the California Homeowner Bill of Rights, which actually give them the right to bring a claim in court, to give them the right to hold the servicer and the investor and the entities who actually own their mortgage to a higher standard, their skepticism is off the scale. They don't believe that, and perhaps for good reason, because I always, any time the legislature passes a new law, they usually raise more questions than they give answers to, and I don't think the Homeowners Bill of Rights is any exception to that, because there's all kinds of questions that it raises rather than answers. But it is one of those things right now that people are they're burned out. They don't believe what the servicers are telling them. They don't believe, and perhaps that's much of their own fault in terms of listening to people who will promise them and guarantee them anything. I tell people constantly, if you think there's some guarantee and, look, we can save your home, or somebody's told you that, they're lying to you. Right. There is absolutely no way that the legal process in the state guarantees anything. Ultimately you've got to try to work something out with your servicer, and getting people to understand that is a really difficult problem that I keep seeing on my end from the consumer standpoint.
If I can jump in real quick.
Sure,
actually,
absolutely.
The camp actually had what's called a Preserving Home Ownership Initiative, and that was one of the things. We were trying to understand what the servicers wanted, and we would give that information as a free service, as a community service to borrowers. And that you hit right on the head. The problem is that it's in the eyes of the beholder. It's in the eyes of the asset managers, in the eyes of whoever you speak on the phone that is trying to go down a script and trying to understand that, okay, what can we do? Oh, you have to be late. You can't be late. There's so much misinformation, and that's the problem. And that's why, one of these, if you have an association that can give you that information better than, unfortunately, all the noise that we hear on the radio, all the mailers we get. Again, what Tim said is that if they can guarantee it, you need to run away.
Yeah, I could say it's getting much better. The fact is they, meaning my clients, the servicers, were so overwhelmed. And I was in-house and serving as their outside counsel. They were just so overwhelmed and taken by surprise with the sheer volume of loan modifications when this thing imploded in late 2008. They just went to triage mode, and they just didn't have the systems in place. And the folks there were not, and I'm not talking down about them, but
Sure.
They're not educated in this area. They're underpaid, overworked, and the mortgage servicers are a factory, you know, and that's what they do. Time is money, right? And that's how they get paid.
I'm glad you said that, because you're actually right. We all tend to come down on the big guy, but the fact of the matter is they were taken by surprise.
Yeah.
They had maybe one person working that department before. Now it's probably their biggest department.
When I was general counsel at Fremont, I solely did all the modifications myself.
I'm sorry. Wow.
No, I mean, that's how few we had, you know, and it usually was in connection with some lawsuit that we settled that it resulted in a modification of the loan terms, and it had to do with the origination of the loan, not something that happened post-origination.
Guys, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. You guys just gave us all some very valuable information. I think it's something that the consumer will actually be able to learn from. And if you're listening and you want to talk to these guys personally or just have some general questions, you can reach us at 888-814-3335. That's 888-814-3335, or you can check us out on the web at moneymatterswithdino.com. This segment was brought to you by Citywide Home Loans. We'll be right back from the 2013 Lender Fair in Newport Beach.
Alliance Portfolio is a licensed real estate broker. California DRE broker license 01868859, NMLS 324460.
Are you looking to diversify or add real estate secured investments to your portfolio? Did you know that investing in trust deeds can provide a better return with better security than many other alternate investments? For over 20 years, Alliance Portfolio has been providing the highest quality mortgage fund and trust deed investment opportunities with first-class service and communication. Alliance Portfolio offers well underwritten loans, low loan-to-value ratios, and all secured by prime Southern California coastal community real estate. At Alliance Portfolio, we don't just lend money, we lend our expertise. Call 949-349-1322 today and let us know that you heard us on the Dino and Nelson Show to capitalize on a special opportunity. That's 949-349-1322. Investors, when our job is done, your job is easy. Sit back and capitalize. 949-349-1322 or text the word Alliance to 313131.
Thank you for hanging with us. This is Money Matters with Dino on KTLK AM1150. I'm your host, Dino Katsiametis, and I'm here to give you the tools and information to build a secure and strong portfolio with real estate. If you have any questions at all, you can get a hold of myself or any of my guests here today. Give us a call at 888-814-3335. That's 888-814-3335, or you can reach us at moneymatterswithdino.com. This segment was brought to you by CFAM Credit Solutions, the company that helps you regain control 1 point at a time. Find out how to increase your credit score. Go to our website, moneymatterswithdino.com, and look up CFAM Credit Solutions. So this last segment is our famous Ask Dino segment, and basically it's very simple. You go to the web, you go to our Facebook page, or you call us. You just ask your questions, and then we do our best at the end of every week to answer all those questions. So I'm going to read off some of the questions here, and since we got the attorneys here for free today, we're going to actually get them to answer some of these as well. So first question, let's see. After refinancing my home, how long should I wait to check back to see if there's any other programs or better rate for me? Well, that's my answer. Okay, so the question is 4 months typically. If you gotta refinance, fund your loan, and about 4 months later you can refinance again. If the rate's lower, you just do it. I mean, it doesn't matter. If you're saving money and it makes sense, dollar for dollar, then you got to do it. Call me on that one. Number 2, what is the difference between points and origination fees? Well, that's pretty easy. Nothing. It's the same thing. So don't let anybody tell you otherwise. If there's a bunch of interesting names on your closing statement, question them. It's really the same thing. Question number 3, if I co-sign for my children, can I write off the interest? Keefe, you said you're not a CPA, but I know you can probably answer this one. Do you know the answer?
Well, are they co-signing or are they guaranteeing?
Well, I think if you're
they're a
co-signer,
then it's my belief that you can write off if you're a co-borrower.
So this is interesting. I don't know if Timothy, you know the answer to this either or not, but I believe if you co-signed or if you're making the payment, right? Who's actually writing the check? I'm assuming that's what it is. I don't know. Do you guys know the answer?
I don't.
Okay, somebody stumped me here. We got to get a CPA.
I think the parent needs to tell the child, "Hey, if I'm making these payments, I'm getting the benefit."
Getting the write-off. That's right. Okay, so that's a good one. We're going to try and clarify that with the CPA for next week. Here's a good one. I'm getting divorced, and we have a home, but I was never put on title. Does this mean that I'm not entitled to my share of the home? They're fighting for this one.
Yeah, I don't know if we're fighting for it or both trying to push it off on each other more than anything. That really gets into divorce law, and it depends on what the payments up until that point have been made on the house. There may be some community interest bought into it, but generally speaking, that house is going to be whoever's on title.
Yeah, I'm not a family law lawyer.
Yeah,
however,
neither am I.
Community property, okay, this is a community property state. If the property was acquired during the marriage, even though she's not on title, usually she's entitled to half.
Unless, of course, you can show that the purchase of it came from separate property assets.
That's true. Yeah, now you're talking about tracing rules.
You bet. It's a whole bunch. Now you're getting back into accounting stuff, with neither of us are. And
even if it did, though, I believe the other spouse would still be entitled to 50% of the appreciation from that day that they got married forward, right?
I think it depends. Yeah, I think it largely depends on what's paying for the payments at that point. If it's separate property paying for it, then that's one thing. If it's community asset, then that's another.
So do we have a lesson learned here at all through this question?
Yeah, get on title.
Don't get divorced. Even better, but get on title, I guess, right?
That's like the 2 bits of free legal advice I always give is, 1, if you're going to get married, don't get divorced, and 2, if you're going to get divorced, don't have kids.
And make sure that title is vested as tenants and joint tenants with right of survivorship.
Right. Okay,
so if one croaks, the other one gets it automatically.
I'm gonna let me find that question, because that's a good one. That was actually similar to one of our questions. What is the most common way married people hold title?
Joint tenants with right of survivorship, husband and wife.
So, here, as a lender, I can tell you that joint tenants is typically the way. But then I have certain clients that are very specific, and they always say, my attorney said I have to add the words with right of survivorship. Why is that? What's the difference?
Well, now you're making me recall my days in property law in law school. I believe joint tenants is not enough. It can be interpreted as a tenancy in common. With joint tenancy, joint tenancy with right of survivorship, each of the other they're jointly and severally owning the property. So if one dies, the other one gets it, regardless.
Which is how I explain it. Basically, what it means is 2 people own it. If one dies, there's no probate, there's no nothing. It just automatically transfers to the other person.
Right.
100%.
Right. And so if it's interpreted in any other way, it would be default to tenancy in common, which even if they're married, sometimes they're a divorced family that got remarried, and it's like the Brady Bunch.
Uh-huh.
Well, guess what? The one that died, his or her children would get his half and hold title jointly now with the stepmom.
Okay.
I'm going to dissent from the general consensus here. Again, I am not a tax lawyer. I am not a divorce lawyer, but I've always held my property as community property, not as joint tenants. And the reason I was told, and I understand to do that, is because of, California, in terms of a divorce, treats a joint tenancy the same as community property, as if it's held in community property. But in case of a death, you get a stepped-up basis on it as of the date of death, if it's community property, which you may not, I understand you do not get if it's joint tenancy. So that has a significant tax impact potentially. There's no difference in terms of if you divorce, because again, the state law can treat them both the same. But again, I will defer. If there's a divorce lawyer out there that says something different, or a tax lawyer that says something different, I will completely defer to that. But that was one of those things that I have in my back of my head, is always hold it as community property for a married couple.
Okay, so here's me now. I've always held my property in trust. And this is actually one of the questions is a trust worth the money?
Oh, absolutely. Not a doubt about it. Especially if you've got enough assets that you're going to be getting close to the federal estate tax exemptions, which is $5. I think this year it's $5,125,000. I think is where it's at right now.
Timothy O'Reilly, Keefe Roberts, I want to thank you two both very much for coming to the show today. Thank you for all the as I said earlier, free information you've offered us. It's a true pleasure. If anybody would like to get a hold of them, again, you can reach us at 888-814-3335. That's 888-814-3335. Or check us out on the web at moneymatterswithdino.com or on Facebook. We'll put you in touch with them directly. Guys, I want to thank you again. I also want to thank our producer, Phil Giagron, for all the hard work he does. And all of you KTLK listeners out there that listen to us every week, I truly appreciate that. I try very hard to come up with good material that's going to be educational for you and something that's actually happening right now in today's world, not what happened the other day or what might happen 5 years from now. We want to find out what's going on now. So I ask you, go to Facebook, go to website, ask your questions, go to the Ask Dino tab, and we'd love to get that. We'll do our best to answer the questions. We're here every Saturday afternoon from noon to 1 on KTLK AM1150, and if you missed any part of the show, you can go to our site or to YouTube and see the show. Thank you so much. We'll be here next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dino.